Tonight I'm going to make chicken soup and we're going to do it all from scratch. So I'm going to show you how I do it. So here's kind of everything I'm throwing into a crock pot. I'm going to let it cook basically all day. It's about 9 a.m. right now. I've got some celery, carrots, some herbs. Right now I'm doing rosemary and thyme, garlic, and I leave the wrappers on because I strain it all at the end anyways. Um, about a quarter of an onion or so, and I have thyme here as well. And usually I'll throw sage in, but I don't have a whole lot of sage, and I can really get the best use of this near the end. I like sage when it comes to any kind of chicken or turkey or something, so I'm going to maybe add that in at the end. Now what I also have over here, this here, we did a whole chicken last night, and this is the broth that was in the bottom of the pan. So I just put this in the fridge, and I'm going to end up dumping this in the crock pot because that's a nice little punch of flavor. And if you do whole chickens or anything, save this stuff. This stuff is so good. You can even, after it's been refrigerated, you can see how it's kind of, the fat solidifies. So you could even scrape off the fat, or if you want to keep the fat because you want extra fat in the diet, great. Then what I have here, we're actually doing a turkey broth is what I'm going to do tonight. This was from a whole turkey that I made just a little while ago. I put this in the freezer and I saved it for a time when I'm going to make some soup. So here we are. That was the neck and heart for it. That chicken that I made last night, that's the neck and heart that went with the chicken. And then this is some shavings I had from some grass-fed beef, and I just threw that in the freezer as well for a time like this. Can just kind of add with some of the flavor. One of the things I don't have here are mushrooms. I usually like to put mushrooms in the crock pot to cook all day. And if you, one thing I wanted to mention is if you're going to do like a actual bone broth, okay? So like here's this right here, right? So a bone broth. Bone broth, you'd want something like chicken feet are really good. Something with like a lot of cartilage in it and everything. And it has to cook for at least 24 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours to really get the nutrients out of the bones from the bird. But if you're just going to do a quick, I'm going to throw it in a crock pot today and make some chicken soup tonight, then it'll still be really good and still healthy for you. So this, by the way, I'm just going to end up putting water in the crock pot because I have enough ingredients. But if you wanted, you could add some of this to it to kind of punch up the flavor a little, you could say. But I'm going to show you another little thing when we cook our chicken breasts, how we're going to use the broth from that to add into the broth that we make from this. So we're just going to build flavors. So I'm just going to kind of lightly chop this up, chop that up, and maybe a little bit of the onion there, and then we're going to go over the crock pot. Okay, they're all chopped up, and now I'm going to take this over the crock pot. Okay, I've added everything to my crock pot, and now almost everything, because now I'm going to add this in there. Oops, I missed the pour. And then I have found from doing this through experience, I need to add a little more salt. So I'm just going to add some salt in there. And obviously you don't want to add way too much because you can always, well, you can add more water, I suppose, at the end. But if you add water, because if you over salt it, then if you add water, you'll dilute it, so you don't really want to do that. So I prefer to go lighter on anything, and then you can add more at the end after we strain it and everything. So after that, all we do is simply add water. I've got some hot water here already, and I'll probably won't be enough, so I'll probably have to add more. But basically we're just going to fill this all the way to the top with the cleanest water that you have. So we have a reverse osmosis system, which means that it removes the fluoride and everything, but whatever the cleanest water is that you have that you can put in here, that's what you want to put in there. Okay, I filled it up to the top, and one other ingredient which I usually use I forgot to mention because I don't have it. I put bay leaf in there as well. That's a good one. And when you put the water in, I used some hot water for the first round just because it's there. It doesn't have to be hot water. So let me lock this into place, and we're going to get it turned on. And then I'm going to just let it sit, and maybe about halfway through the day I'll come in and stir it up just a little bit. I'm going to start it on high so it gets nice and hot and everything, and after about maybe 2 hours I'm going to drop it down to low and just let it cook for really as long as you can let it cook. At least I would say try to get 6 to 8 hours would be the best. If it was cooked on high, maybe a little shorter, but anyways, that is what I'm going to do, and we'll check in just a little bit. It's about 7 o'clock right now. I've got some squash roasting in there. We're going to put that in the soup. That's going to be my noodles. I'm going to end up turning off the crock pot here, and I'm going to strain that out. But the chicken, let's talk about the chicken real quick. I got some semi-frozen chicken there. I let it thaw out a little bit overnight, but you could put it in frozen. I'm going to use the pressure cooker. You obviously could put this in a crock pot. Cook it however you want your chicken to be in your chicken soup. I'm going to just add some salt, and that's all I'm really going to add in here. You could obviously add herbs or anything else you want to put in there. And then you could put water in. I'm just going to go ahead and use the chicken bone broth, because what I'm going to end up doing is this chicken is going to flavor the liquid even more. And when it's done, I can pour this into my main chicken broth that I got going. So that looks good right there. So I'm just going to turn this on high. When the chicken's about like this, it takes about 28 minutes, somewhere around there, in the pressure cooker. So I'm going to do that, and we're going to get the broth all ready to go and put it on the stove. So let's talk about what I'm going to put in my soup. I'm going to saute up some vegetables. You could use any vegetables that you have if you want to add some vegetables into your chicken noodle soup. This one, so I have asparagus in the fridge and some zucchini and squash. So I'm going to saute these up in a pan over here with some avocado oil, maybe a little salt and pepper, and that's about it. And I'm just going to put that into the soup. And this is some green onions. I forgot the name. I had to pause the video to look up what it was. Green onions. Yes, I'm going to cut some of this up a little bit and just put it on the top once it's done. And then we have rice. Interesting, right? Low carb. Well, this is cooked and then cooled rice. We cooked it the other day and cooled it in the fridge. So I'm going to heat it up. I'll probably heat it up with, it's got a lot of butter in it already, but I'll probably heat it up maybe with a little coconut oil. If you see a post that I have in the Facebook group, there's one where you see where reheated starches actually will produce less of a glucose spike when you eat it. So less carbs, essentially. Some of it turns into a resistant starch. Now, that doesn't mean all of it does, so you have to go in portions, and it depends on how low carb you are. I'm good if I go to 50 carbs today. And I mean, look, a very small amount of rice isn't going to contribute a whole lot, but that's up to you if you want to put rice in it or not. I'm going to add just a little bit of rice just for some texture and have some other things in there. And then I'll probably just top it off with a little rosemary at the top just to give a little more flavor into the broth. Okay, so I'm going to cut up some of this stuff, get this into a pot, and get things rolling. Okay, I just emptied out the crock pot, you can see right there, into a big bowl. I just used a strainer. See, like that, and emptied it into a bowl. That's how I do it. Okay, so a lot of times what I end up doing is I'll take this this chicken broth, and I will just put this in the refrigerator and just chill it overnight. Don't put it really hot like this in your refrigerator right away. You definitely would want to chill it down first in an ice bath, or just let it sit out for a little bit and then put it in the fridge, because it will raise the temperature in your refrigerator. And then in the morning or tomorrow, you'll see what happens is all the fat will rise to the top. And if you remember that little bowl I had of the chicken broth, remember I had the fat on top. I could have scraped that off. This would look just like that. You could actually scrape the fat off if you wanted to do that. If you wanted to keep it higher fat, you can do that too. It just makes it more oily when you eat it. But since we're going to eat this tonight, I don't have time for that. I'm just going to go ahead and pour it right here into this pot, and then I'll heat it up and I'll just taste it as I go. I'll add salt, pepper, and maybe some herbs, whatever I think I need. I just kind of taste as I go until it tastes good. I'll also add, by the way, remember that chicken broth that will be in there. I'm going to throw that in as well. But all right, so I'm going to put this in the pot now. So I'm doing up my spaghetti squash now. I do have another video in here on how I cook spaghetti squash. For the most part, you cut it in half, a little oil, salt, pepper, put it in a pan with some water, cook it at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes, and there you go. So I'm going to finish doing this, and then we'll move on. Okay, so here is our basic, all our basic ingredients. That's the broth. So we added some herbs in there, salt, pepper. Did you add anything else? Sometimes we put like a garlic powder or something in there, but it's pretty good. And I dumped that extra juice in there. I've got my reheated rice. We did, that's about a cup. So, you know, we might have about maybe a half a cup of reheated rice in our soup. You could obviously skip that. We got some shredded up chicken. That's the chives I got for finishing. The veggies that we're going to put in there. And there's our noodles, which is a spaghetti squash. So we're going to build this real quick. All right, there's our basic building of the soup. Rice and the noodles are under there. And we just finish it off with a little bit of broth. And I'm just going to finish it off with my little chives, or not chives, but green onions. And that is some chicken noodle soup. I hope you liked the video.